Hello, and welcome to the Talking Michigan Transportation Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Cranston. Today, I'll be talking about equity in the context of building and maintaining transportation infrastructure. Last week, Michigan Department of Transportation Director Paul Ajegba was among signers of an Equity in Infrastructure Project pledge, solidifying a commitment to ensuring opportunities for underrepresented businesses. He'll talk about that pledge, and then later, I'll speak with Phil Washington, who is the CEO of the Denver International Airport and President Biden's nominee for Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. He helped co-found EIP, along with John Porcari, who was Deputy Secretary and Chief Operating Officer of the U.S. Department of Transportation during the Obama administration. But first, again, I'm with Director Ajegba.
Thank you. Good morning, Jeff. How are you today? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted you to talk kind of in general about what this Equity and Infrastructure Pledge means to you. You were one of 6 DOT CEOs to sign this. There's a symbolic element to this, but there's also a very tangible element. Can you talk about what those are?
Yeah. First, let me say I was truly honored to be invited to be part of the event last week in Washington. I think the symbolic part of it is that the invited CEOs came together to say we are pledging to the vision of what the EIP is about. EIP is equity in procurement, right? The significance of this is to also show that our commitment to making sure that all these dollars that's being given to the states, that it's distributed in an equitable way. Make sure that some of the DBE programs that we have in place, we shore them up, and where we think we could do better, we should strive to do better. Part of the bigger picture of EIP is to look at what are some of the federal barriers that's holding the DBEs back from first people getting into the business and to growing. We've been working with them on some of these issues, identified some. For instance, I think the question of reciprocity between states, I think it's a good idea. We have a construction company, a minority construction company located in Toledo. They should not have to go through another pre-qual process to get pre-qualified right here in Michigan when they can do projects in Monroe, in Dundee, or quite frankly, all the way to Ann Arbor. So these are some of the things we can do to make it easy for them. And, like commercial useful function is a big issue on the federal level. The DBE cap on your financial statement is another big one. That number has not changed for as long as I can remember. Those are the little things that we can do on our part to help move this initiative forward.
So MDOT has had a DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program, for a number of years, focusing on just the kinds of things you're talking about. And we can definitely talk about the social equity aspect and why that's important, and the belief that, the rising tide, obviously, is going to lift all, and that we need everybody to be able to participate long-term for the health of the economy. The more businesses, big and small, that are successful, the more successful we all are. So talk about that DBE program and what you've learned over the years about it and why it's helpful.
Well, no, having spent a lot of time on this issue while I was in University Region and in Metro, I think I somewhat understand some of the challenges that is associated with growing the DBEs. For instance, first you have to have a willing and able company out there. But how do you get to them being a willing and able company? And that's making sure that things are put in place to help them succeed. We've had cases where We've had very promising DBEs take on more than they can handle. And when that happens, they get in trouble. So how do we make sure that they don't get to that point? By maybe creating some oversight things and putting some oversight things in place, and quite frankly, play an advisory role sometimes when we need to. We're doing a lot of very big expedite projects where you try to inject a DBE in that process. They probably cannot keep up, and that is not a good recipe, right? We have to make sure that they are bidding on the right projects that will help them learn and grow to be able to stand on their own. And I always like the matchmaking idea where you match a DBE with a big contractor. They take them under their wings. They're more like what we're doing on the mentor protege side and the consultant side. Create programs like that where it has to be what they want for the big contractor to want to take them on. So you create an incentive for them to want to do that. And I think that to me is a slow, healthy way to start moving the needle on this issue.
Well, some of the things that you've done even before you were director, but you've especially underscored during your time as director since 2019, kind of lead right into this. I mean, it's a natural evolution to have an equity in infrastructure project as an outgrowth of some of the things that you've done in your state and others have done. One of those big things, was your hand in founding MDOT's Transportation Diversity Recruitment Program and getting youths from historically Black universities and colleges into the system ahead of time. Can you talk about that?
Oh, I appreciate that. I think a program like that is, to me, a good way to expose underrepresented group into our business, right? When we created the program about 8 years ago, it was more for let's bring in we created it with 4 students from HBCU school. We put them up at the University of Michigan, give them a job over the summer. And in doing that, we able to kind of expose them to what we do, working out in the field, with the hope that someday, once they graduate, they want to work in the industry and hopefully maybe decide they want to open their own construction company and based on the knowledge that they've gained working out in the field. Obviously, the program has grown tremendously over the years. This past summer, I believe we had about 63 students from all HBCUs across the country come to Michigan. And, most, I think 90% of them worked out in the construction projects. And that's, to me, is another way of trying to do what we can to expose them to the industry with the hope that eventually they will stay, which I believe it's a good thing for not just MDOT, the construction industry, but I think for the whole country.
Yeah, absolutely. So something else that you've done recently in your tenure as director has created the department's first chief culture, equity, and inclusion officer. You put a special emphasis on that. You put that position at the deputy director level to make a statement for the department and for the rest of the state about how important this is. Can you talk about what brought you to that decision?
Well, first, I'm going to give Laura Mester and Tony Crowderfield, my director's executive team, a lot of credit on this. It was a DET vision to say, okay, with all the unrest going on in the country, emphasis on equity and inclusion, what part are we going to play in this? And over several meetings and discussions, we all decided, well, let's create equity and inclusion officer position. That's a deputy director level, because if you really want to effect change, we truly believe you got to keep it at that level. And we reorganized the department, put some areas underneath that position. Again, I'll give them credit because they were open-minded enough about it, where we took planning and put it under that position, put transportation and economic development, put it under that position, several other positions, Office of Organizational Development in that position. And I think doing that kind of sends the message to the department and to our external customers as well that MDOT truly, we mean this, and we really want to see how we can effect change, because we do give out a lot of contracts. And how do you make sure there's equity in doing this? And that is what that position was created to do. And I think Terry's doing a great job slowly building her team and start putting some things in place that I believe over time is going to be a fabric of the culture of the organization moving forward.
Yeah, that's Terry Slaughter, who is the CCEIO for MDOT, and as you said, she's taking it, slow and methodical, but with a long-term vision to make an impact. So, I guess just real briefly before we close, what does success for you look like out of this EIP initiative? Both at the state level and nationally.
As I said during the ceremony, one of the things I truly like about it is that we're going to measure this, right? I always believe when you create an initiative like this, or quite frankly, you're doing anything, you don't measure, you don't know how well you're doing. Success to me is to see that we are slowly moving some of the identifiable barriers out of the way. Again, part of what I've said in some of our meetings is like the reciprocity thing. That to me is a low-hanging fruit where every region can really embrace that initiative, where we bother Ohio, Indiana, and we could do those things easily, right? By collaborating with them. And quite frankly, I like to see what this whole thing looks like in 5 years. We put some things in place. These are the things we'd like to achieve in the next 5 years, and work hard to achieve them and measure and see if, to me, that's what success looks like. And when we've done that, I think it creates an environment where a small DBE company can actually grow and stand on their own.
Yeah, and once again, that success across the board is going to be good for all of us, good for society, good for the economy, and good for certainly the transportation industry. So, well, thank you, Director. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate your interest in this issue as well. Thank you.
And we'll be back in just a minute to talk again with Phil Washington, one of the co-founders of the Equity and Infrastructure Project.
The Michigan Department of Transportation reminds you that when a vehicle collides with another vehicle, person, or other object, it is a crash, not an accident. By reducing human error, we can prevent crashes and rebuild Michigan roads safely.
Our second segment today continues the discussion about EIP, the Equity and Infrastructure Project, and I'm very pleased to have one of the co-founders of the project with me, Phil Washington, who is the CEO of the Denver International Airport. Mr. Washington, thank you very much for taking time to talk with us.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's great to be here.
So you talked about the momentum that's being generated for EIP with more CEOs from DOTs across the country signing on, and obviously there's both a symbolic and we hope tangible component to this whole thing. Could you just talk high level about how you think this can actually move the needle for DBEs and other underrepresented groups in transportation?
Well, I think a couple of things that I think about. One is increasing generational wealth. This administration declared through the president's executive order that the president wanted to increase generational wealth in underserved communities. And so one of the things that we thought about that could accomplish that was through contracting. And so the idea of asking infrastructure agencies around the country to pledge to significantly increase the amount of minority business prime contract awards was something that we thought was very, very doable and still do. And so to have, as we did last week, 6 state DOTs to commit to that and take a pledge to increase minority prime contract awards with the result of increasing generational wealth in underserved communities is very, very significant. And we think we're on our way to having more states do just that.
So, social equity should go without saying as a goal of all of ours. But from a really practical standpoint, could you talk about, the rising tide and why it's so important for society and for the economy that the more people you enable to participate, the more businesses, the more we all flourish?
Yeah, I think, I've always said that this effort is an economic development program. It's an economic development project. And the idea is that if small and minority businesses, especially Black and brown businesses, receive and are awarded prime contracts, it stands to reason that those small businesses will hire people from underserved communities because those businesses, those small and minority businesses, are oftentimes from those underserved communities. And so if those businesses receive prime awards and then turn around and hire people from those underserved communities, those individuals will pay taxes on their earnings. I can see, house purchases, home purchases increasing. I can see crime being reduced in those underserved communities because people have jobs. There's all kinds of residual benefits from this effort that we have been pushing forward through the equity and infrastructure project. So a rising tide really does benefit everyone concerned. It benefits those communities. It benefits the federal government, state government, all levels of government. And so that is why we're so passionate about it.
Well, talk about some of the things that you've done, both in your role at DIA and in previous career opportunities to enhance this, and what kind of brought you to the point to join John Porcari in founding EIP?
It's a huge passion of mine. It has been a passion of mine since I was a youngster, actually. I can remember seeing people building infrastructure in my community, which was public housing on the south side of Chicago. I saw people building infrastructure that did not look like me. And when I looked to get a job building my own community, I was either told that I was not trained or I lacked the experience. And so that stuck with me from the time I was 12, 13, 14 years old. Went into the United States military and worked to try to level the playing field, even in the military, supported women in combat arms units, and that was not the case when I first went into the military. Got into transportation and looked to level the playing field with minority businesses and coached and mentored women. I like to point out to people that during my 6 years at LA Metro, we produced 6 CEOs in other places. And so educating and training and mentoring has always been something that I've been very, very passionate about. John Porcari and I have been friends for many years. And in the run-up and in working on the Biden-Harris transition team and the policy committee, we thought about how we could operationalize the president's executive order 13985, that talks about advancing racial equity through the federal government funding. And so we thought about contracting. And so we created this effort of equity in equity in procurement and equity in infrastructure. And I'm happy to see that it has flourished over the last year or so that we put this together.
While we're on that topic, let's talk about, what you're doing currently and, what opportunities are in the future. President Biden has nominated you to be administrator of the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, which is part of US DOT. You'd be working with Secretary Buttigieg. Talk about that and how you think you can further not just these objectives, but some other goals of yours.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm honored by the nomination. I'm honored by that nomination. I'm honored by the trust that the president has in me to lead this agency. I'm honored by Secretary Buttigieg having the trust in me, along with the deputy secretary as well. So very, very honored. I'm going through the process right now. We'll see where that goes. But, I think thinking about that position, I will do the same things that I've done for the last 45 years of my adult life, which is number one, safety, and also operationalizing equity in the infrastructure realm. And so that is what I've done for 45 years. I will continue to do that from the equity standpoint. Where we are right now in aviation, we need more people. We need more women in aviation. We need people of color in aviation. We need to stand up a qualified workforce for the next 15 to 20 years. And this is not just in aviation. This is in all modes of transportation. And so I will continue what I've been doing for 45 years, and that is leading by example.
So is that a lot? I mean, you talked about training and certainly diversifying the people in the aviation industry, but is that, we know that flights have come roaring back, since the height of the pandemic and people are traveling. I guess we could talk about the juxtaposition or contradiction of people telling pollsters how bad the economy is, even while they're buying plane tickets and traveling. But is a lot of that challenge in hiring and getting qualified pilots in the pipeline? Is that a big part of it?
Well, I think, the challenges that aviation have are well documented. Not just aviation, but I think in every mode of transportation, there is a need to stand up a qualified workforce in every mode. And that is not just pilots, that is mechanics, that is controllers, that is rail technicians. If you think about the rail industry, that is all kinds of needs that we have. And so training becomes very, very important in all of these. I would approach any job that I'm in, whether it is FAA or whether it is my job here running the third busiest airport in the world, which is Denver International Airport. Whatever my role is, I will approach it the same way, and that is bringing people into an industry where they are needed, and that is looking out for the safety aspects of this industry and other infrastructure modes. I will come to that with a level of experience that I think is needed.
Wow, third busiest in the world. I as a skier, I can testify that DIA is busy, but I didn't know it was that busy. Wow.
Yes, absolutely. That's
impressive. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I want to wish you the best of luck with both the EIP project going forward and with the FAA nomination.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I appreciate your interest in the Equity and Infrastructure Project. And, we're moving forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to this week's edition of the Talking Michigan Transportation Podcast. To subscribe to show notes and more, go to Apple Podcasts and search for Talking Michigan Transportation. I also want to thank Randy Devler for his work producing this week's podcast, Jesse Ball, MBET's social media coordinator, who proofreads the show notes and helps with all kinds of things related to getting this done every week, and Courtney Bates, who does a great job putting the podcast together in a format so it can be posted, and Sarah Canucks Connect in our office, who also helps with the production and the transcription of the podcast.